When the German dictator Adolf Hitler was a young boy, when he was 8 years old, his family moved to the Austrian town of Linz, which is on the southern border with Germany. Young Adolf was taken in, completely mesmerized by his history teacher, Dr. Leopold Poetsch. Dr. Poetsch was the first one to plant the seed of anti-Semitic views in young Hitler's mind. Dr. Poetsch was a racist. He believed that all ethnic Germans should be governed by one German national government. He considered Jews and Slavs as inferior citizens. Later, Hitler himself wrote about Dr. Poetsch in Mein Kampf, saying how he was spellbound and often carried away by Dr. Poetsch's history lessons. Hitler credits his entire worldview, his view of history, to Dr. Poetsch. The teacher himself went underground as part of Nazi SS Austria when the war began. Years after the war, there was another intense teacher-student relationship that was shaping up in the Russian city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg. This one between a young Vladimir Putin and his school teacher, Vera Gurevich. She had an intense relationship with the Russian president-to-be during his years at school. She was a mother figure during Putin's psychological traumas. She was the one who steered the young Vladimir Putin away from poverty and towards education and success. On Crux Decode, how many are now pinning their hopes of ending this war in Ukraine on the 88-year-old former school teacher. Vladimir Putin's two older brothers died during infancy while his home city, Leningrad, was ravaged by World War II. And during the blockade of Leningrad, Putin's mum, Maria Ivanova, nearly died from starvation. Putin's parents lived in a cold, communal apartment in a vermin-infested building. In her memoir, Vladimir Putin, Parents, Friends, and Teachers, Vera Gurevich acknowledges a group of hooligan children who had a bad influence on young Putin. Gurevich, alongside Putin's judo instructor and mentor, Anatoly Rakhlin, were the two parental figures in Putin's life, the figures who he had been missing, taking up the mantle of mother and father in young Putin's life. Putin was once hit with an emotional blow after his second father, the man he referred to as second father, who helped shape his future, died after suffering from a long illness. Now, years before this war, Putin was pictured in a somber, emotional scene at the memorial service in memory of Rakhlin. This was in 2013. This was a man that Putin had famously credited for saving him from a wayward life on the mean streets of Leningrad. He also thanked him for being a mentor during his youth. At school, Putin was very agile, restless. He had overflowing energy. He couldn't sit still for too long. He was constantly looking into his classmates' notepads, left and right, sometimes behind. He was always diving under his desk to pick up a pen or pencil that he was constantly dropping. Putin easily got into fights. He would claw himself into the offender, hang on to the offending child, and use his entire weight and grab the offender, almost like fighting a bulldog. In September of 1964, Vera Gurevich paid a visit to Putin's vermin-infested building to speak with a then 11-year-old. She soon discovered that Putin was a latchkey kid. He was left to his own devices throughout the day. There was no parental supervision whatsoever. He survived on a piece of bread and a bottle of milk, even though his mother had prepared his supper. She confronted young Putin and told him, and I quote, "Enough bumming around, get busy with school," unquote. It was the motivation that young Putin had needed. It turned his life around and firmly rooted himself on the straight and narrow. Anatoly Rakhlin, who once said that he was Putin's second father, had coached him for 11 years. Rakhlin died at the age of 75 in 2013 after half a century of training students judo. He was also said to have raised more than 100 masters of judo. The mentor was invited for a private lunch at the Kremlin when Putin came to power in the year 2000. It was described as an irreplaceable moment. Rakhlin's career as a coach began with the training of boys, but he later went on to become the head coach of the Russian women's national judo team in 2009. Putin, whose health is thought to be declining right now, once had shared an insight into his relationship with Vera Gurevich and even admitted that he still calls her to ask her about her well-being. Putin and Gurevich have been photographed together over the years, always familiar, often greeting each other in a close embrace. Now, these two teachers, Vera Gurevich and Anatoly Rakhlin, have had an outsized influence on Putin's early life. They were the mother and father that his real parents could never be. Putin reposed their faith in him by getting serious about his education. He started getting good grades, he went on to study law, and then, of course, the rest is history. Now, 69 years old, Putin appears hell-bent on genocide against Ukraine, with little or no room left for any peace. Friends are now begging his rumored Swiss lover, Alina Kabieva, to convince him to end this conflict, but she too is hidden away in Switzerland. Could his former teacher, Vera Gurevich, and his guide be the answer that the world is looking for?